On this day in history, May 11th, 330, Constantine the Great dedicates the much expanded and rebuilt city of Byzantium, changing its name to New Rome and declaring it the new capital of the Eastern Roman Empire. Included in the following is an excerpt from the 1944 edition of the Encyclopedia Britannica, going over the history of Byzantium and featuring narration from my friend, Ungulus.
Byzantium, a Greek city on the shores of the Bosphorus, occupying the most easterly of the 7 hills of modern Constantinople. It was founded by the Megarians and the Argives under Byzas, about 657 BC, but destroyed in the reign of Darius Hystaspes by the satrap Otanes, and it was recolonized by the Spartan Pausanians, 479 BC. Its situation was remarkable for beauty and security. It controlled the Euxine grain trade. The depths of its harbor rendered its quays accessible to vessels of large burden, while the fisheries were so lucrative that the curved inlet near which it stood became known as the Golden Horn. The population was partly Lacedaemonian and partly Athenian. It was thus a subject of dispute between these states, and was alternately in possession of each, till it fell to the hands of the Macedonians. About 7 years after its second colonization, the Athenian Cimon wrested it from the Lacedaemonians, but in 440 BC it returned to its former allegiance. Alcibiades, after a severe blockade, 408 BC, gained possession of the city through treachery of the Athenian party. In 405 BC, it was retaken by Lysander and placed under a Spartan harmist. It was under the Lacedaemonians when the 10,000, exasperated by the conduct of the governor, made themselves masters of the city, and would have pillaged it but for the eloquence of Xenophon. In 390 BC, Thrasybulus expelled the Lacedaemonian oligarchy and restored democracy and the Athenian influence. Byzantium joined with Rhodes, Chios, Kos, and Mausolus, king of Caria, in throwing off the yoke of Athens, but sought Athenian assistance when Philip of Macedon advanced against it. The Athenians under Chares suffered a severe defeat from Amyntas, the Macedonian admiral, but in the following year gained a decisive victory under Phocion, and compelled Philip to raise the siege. The deliverance of the besieged from a surprise by means of a flash of light which revealed the advancing Macedonian army has rendered this siege memorable. As a memorial of the miraculous interference, the Byzantines erected an altar to the torch-bearing Hecate and stamped a crescent on their coins, a device which is retained by the Turks to this day. During the reign of Alexander, Byzantium was compelled to acknowledge the Macedonian supremacy. After the decay of the Macedonian power, it regained its independence, but suffered from the incursions of the Scythians. The losses which they sustained by land roused the Byzantines to indemnify themselves from the vessels which crowded the harbor and the merchantmen which cleared the straits, but this had the effect of provoking a war with the neighboring naval powers. The exchequer being drained to buy off the Gauls about 279 BC, and the imposition of an annual tribute of 80 talents, they were compelled to exact a toll on all the ships that passed the Bosphorus, a measure which the Rhodians avenged by a war wherein the Byzantines were defeated. During the first years of its alliance with Rome, Byzantium held the rank of a free confederate city, but having sought arbitration on some of its domestic disputes, it was subjected to imperial jurisdiction, and gradually stripped of its privileges. The Emperor Claudius remitted the heavy tribute which had been imposed upon it, but the last remnant of its independence was taken away by Vespasian, who taunted the inhabitants with having forgotten to be free. The city was besieged and taken, 196 AD, by Severus, who destroyed it, demolished the famous wall, and put the principal inhabitants to the sword. The overthrow of Byzantium was a great loss to the empire, since it might have served as a protection against the Goths, who afterwards sailed past it into the Mediterranean. Severus afterwards relented, and, rebuilding a large portion of the town, gave it the name of Augusta Antonina. It had scarcely begun to recover its former position when, through the capricious resentment of Gallienus, the inhabitants were once more put to the sword, and the town was pillaged. From this disaster the inhabitants recovered so far as to be able to give an effectual check to an invasion of the Goths in the reign of Claudius II, and the fortifications were strengthened during the civil wars which followed the abdication of Diocletian. Diocletian had resolved to transfer his capital to Nicodemia, but Constantine, struck with the advantages which the situation of Byzantium presented, resolved to build a new city there on the site of the old, and transfer the seat of government to it 330 AD.